Well, I've had a bit of a wander around the castle and tried to stay clear of the peacock, and I think my head's clear now, and I'm ready to learn a bit more about the Vikings in Britain. So this second wave of Vikings is kind of just picking away at the existing throne of the Anglo-Saxons.
At first, yeah, they come along, they raid, and they take payments to go away.
Okay.
The trouble with that as a strategy is they know that if they raid, they get paid to go away. So why stop raiding?
So keep coming back.
So they keep coming back.
So Canute and Edmund.
Yeah. So there's a battle between Canute and Edmund Ironside, and it's probably pretty much a draw. Okay. They agree to divide the kingdom between them, but Edmund dies a few months later of wounds that he'd taken at the battle, leaving Canute really undisputed. There were other English claimants, but none of them were in a strong enough position to make the claim. So Canute became King of England. A couple of years later, he became King of Denmark as well. He then conquered Norway sometime after that, and part of Sweden. So we get a sort of grand Viking empire.
Wow.
And he's ruler of all of that.
Is this really the end? At this point, there is no Anglo-Saxon kingdom.
That's right. It disappears, but then it comes back.
Right.
In 1066, matters got very complicated. Harold Godwinson is sitting there in England, having taken the throne with English support,
right,
but knowing there's this potential invasion from the north, and knowing there's also an invasion potentially coming from William of Normandy in the south.
Okay.
And he kept his troops facing the invasion from William. That was where he saw the main threat, until he heard that Harold and Tosti had landed in Yorkshire. And this was the King of Norway, Harold Hardrada, Harold Hard Ruler. Okay. And he was a very famous Viking. He's sometimes described as the last of the Vikings.
Oh, okay.
The two of the earls engaged them, and they were beaten. The English Northern Army was basically lost, and Yorkshire was under the control of Harold of Norway. The English Harold Godwinson, rushed his troops up from the southeast, where they'd been watching for William, and managed to beat Harold of Norway at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. But while he's up there, William invades. But eventually, at Hastings, Harold was killed, and so William became king. And
William was sort of a Viking.
He was. The name Normandy means that the land of the Northmen.
Right. So Gareth, is it true to say then that William the Conqueror coming in 1066 is really just one bunch of Vikings having a bit of a spat with another bunch of Vikings?
Well, not really, because the Anglo-Saxon kingdom had been re-established by Edward, so the Normans are really taking on the Anglo-Saxons, but with some Vikings on the Anglo-Saxon side.
Okay. So that's pretty much the end of the Viking era in England at that point. Did the Viking era continue outside of England?
It depends on how you count the Viking era. There's one last raid or period of raiding in the 1090s, Magnus Barelegs.
Did we hear the professor correctly?
Magnus Barelegs.
It's almost too good to be true.
Magnus Barelegs.
One more time.
Magnus Barelegs. But he doesn't have the same sort of lasting effect, and he doesn't seem to have achieved anything in England.
Sort of the whole thing kind of wound down after Magnus Barelegs, eh?
That's right.
Thgareth, tell me, at what point in your life did you decide that you would devote your entire life to learning about Vikings?
I was about four. Yeah, it would have been 4. I read my first book on the Vikings. I barely remember this, but my mum says that then for the next year, every time I went to the library,
another book on Vikings.
Yeah, it came out. And my grandmother made me a Viking costume. When I went to university, one of the courses I most enjoyed was on the Vikings in Scotland, and so I went on to do a PhD in that, and I've sort of stayed with the subject ever since, I suppose.
Now, Gareth, my friend Helga, who lives down in Danes Hill in Hampshire, was digging around in her turnip patch the other day, and she came up with this funny-looking thing. I suspect it's probably a Viking helmet.
One look at that, actually, I know it isn't, but there's various ways. Looking at objects, firstly, as a helmet, who's it a helmet for? I mean, it would look good on you. It's very
Yes, well, I
fetching.
thought so.
It's very fetching.
Albert bare legs.
Yes, but...
Or hard rider. Albert hard rider.
Excellent. But for use in battle for anyone of full size, not a lot of use. It wouldn't be much good on me.
All
You've
right,
got a
then.
second problem that it's made of clay.
Oh. Right. They didn't
and-
have ceramic helmets?
No, and an axe would just go straight through that.
Oh.
Metal helmets, yes. Leather helmets, probably. If you boil leather in beeswax,
Oh.
it comes out pretty rigid,
Okay.
and it's much lighter and cooler than a metal helmet. So it's a
Okay.
lot more comfortable to wear. And on a hot day, fighting in a hot metal helmet,
Yes.
it's
If
really
you're
uncomfortable.
cleaving skulls, you want to be comfortable.
Exactly, and we've got accounts of people throwing off their armour when they were fighting on really hot days because it was just too hot, and then getting
Yeah,
killed
and
because
then
they've got no
getting killed.
protection.
Okay.
But the real giveaway are these,
What, the horns?
the horns.
Oh, surely Vikings wore horns on their helmets.
We have no helmets known from the Viking Age with horns, so horns and wings on helmets, 19th century invention.
Okay.
So all in all, it's an interesting find, but not a real Viking
So
one.
you're not interested in it for the British Museum?
It'd be useful for our collection of
Well, I was going to say, if you don't want it, I'll take it.
for my personal collection of sort of Viking-related tat.
Look, I'll take it back to Helga and tell the British Museum may be interested. But in the meantime, if I could have it on permanent loan, I'll wear it around.
Excellent. There
All
you go.
right. So I guess the last thing I really wanted to ask you, Gareth, is about the Viking mythology in our modern culture.
Since the 1970s, there's been the growth of what you could call the fluffy bunny school of Viking studies.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
And people have emphasised, the Vikings were traders, they were craftsmen, they were farmers, there were all these other things as well. But that's not what grabs the popular imagination.
No.
I think the Vikings, to a great extent, it's the sex and violence.
Yes.
So, yeah, they were a pretty unpleasant bunch, but so was almost everyone else in that period. It's just they've got the slightly sexy image with it, and that's what people go for.
That's what people go for. Gareth, thank you very much for chatting with us today. Well, we'll go off and look for Vikings now.
Excellent.